Okay, welcome to Finance Friday, guys. It's good to see everybody. My name is Jerry Fetta. If you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm the owner, founder, CEO of a company called Wealth DynamX. If you are a repeat visitor, a client, you know me, it's good to see you again. We're here with another Finance Friday. We've been doing these for a while. It's been more than 4 years, and every week it just gets better and better. The first time I ever did one of these courses, I remember it was a vacuum I was filling. Right. What I mean by that is there wasn't something that was out there. There wasn't a resource where people could go learn the right information about finances. So you could go to, a financial advisor, you could go to maybe a meetup, but they were going to teach you the stuff that everybody knows, put your money in mutual funds and Wall Street and all of this stuff and wait till you're 60 and hopefully you can retire and then hopefully you can die before you run out of money. Right. So, that's not what we're talking about tonight. I'm going to share with you not only the basics of the top 1% financial education, but I'm going to teach you how to get one. Okay. So we're not going to be, covering all of the top 1% financial education tonight. That'd be ridiculous to cover that all in 1 hour. Right. But I can teach you the steps to take. I can show you what I did. I can show you what you need to be thinking about and what you need to be doing. Right. So, before we jump into this, a couple of things that I cover every week. First one is I want you to have a purpose for being here tonight. Okay. So why are you here? Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Kind of weird, quite frankly, that you're here, right? Could be doing other things, but instead you're hanging out with me on a webinar. Okay. Why are you here? What's your purpose? And if you don't have one, it's going to be very difficult to learn anything. So have your purpose picked out. Think about that first. Okay. Second thing is get rid of the idea that finances are complicated. Okay. They're not. Finances are basic math and arithmetic, right? So you've got basic arithmetic and then you've got the vocabulary too, which is what represents that arithmetic. So we might see, this complicated financial term. Really, it's just a math problem, right? When you think about it like that, everything is learnable as long as you know the math and as long as you know the vocabulary that's being used. Okay. So remove the idea that we can't learn about finances. Second thing to remove is that you already know it all. Okay. A know-it-all can't learn anything, period. Right. So I want you to think about, okay, well, what can I learn here? How do I apply this? And this really for me in my life is how I measure my knowledge. If I'm not successfully applying something, I don't know it. I don't kid myself on that point. If I'm not successfully applying something, I do not have knowledge. I might have the ability to regurgitate information, but that is not knowledge. That's a different thing. Okay. So I want you to have that as well. And then I want you to think about being a producer, using the information. How are you going to apply this? We're going to talk about a lot of things you can be using tonight on this webinar, but how are you going to apply it in your life? Okay. So these are all factors. Now, a couple of things that I like to cover up front. I want to introduce everyone. Some of you guys already know Nano. You'll reach out. You'll see Nano on my team here. Nano is one of my top managers in Wealth DynamX. So you are probably going to get a message from Nano. If you're a client, you already know what you already know Nano. Say what's up. If you don't know Nano yet, if you're not a client, Nano's goal is to get connected with you. Okay. So we want to take the webinar into a conversation and really focus on how we can help you and your financial goals. We're going to go through a couple of concepts. Most of them can be found tonight in my book, Blueprint to Financial Freedom. Okay. So reach out to Nano if you don't have a copy of this book. This is going to help you tremendously so that when the webinar is done, you're able to actually take this and start running with it. Okay. So Blueprint to Financial Freedom, and Nano can get you set up with that. And that's going to be if you connect with him. He can also do a coaching call with you as well. So make sure you see that message from Nano, connect with him, reach out to him. He's helped a ton of our clients out. Right. So we're talking tonight about getting a top 1% financial education. Okay. How do we get one and what is one? Okay. Now I want to preface this with what I got, right? And what I got was better than what most people got. I got what I would consider a retail mainstream financial education. Okay, what retail mainstream financial education means is I became a financial advisor. Okay, this was at the age of 18 years old. I got my financial licenses. I started training with a very large financial firm, and I started learning about the financial industry. Okay, now I was a 18-year-old kid in Wasilla, Alaska, right? And I grew up in a lower income family. We'd been homeless. We'd lost our homes before. We'd lost our vehicles. My parents had been divorced. I was a food bank kid. All of the things, right? So money wasn't something I was privy to. Okay. It was actually quite the opposite. I thought money was this evil thing. And I thought it was, ruining my life because it had broken my family up and I'd seen so many negative things with it. So when I started learning about just the basics of like, you should put your money in a retirement plan. And if you buy term life insurance and you die, your family's taken care of. And here's how you pay off your consumer debt. Not even mind-blowing stuff. This was basic stuff. To me, that was mind-blowing because I had nothing. Okay. Now think about this. I've got dogs. When I give my dog like a piece of ribeye steak, he doesn't know the difference between that and sirloin. Right? Now, the problem there lies in the fact that my dog is never going to appreciate that ribeye because he doesn't know that that's a better quality steak. Right? To him, he's never had anything but dog food. So I give him, the ribeye. He's like, man, this is awesome. I give him the sirloin. It's the same thing. Right? So when you take someone like me at that time, I was completely and entirely financially illiterate. I was getting little bits of cheap cuts of financial education. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I thought that was it. I was like, man, I remember talking to my buddy who, at the time he was doing day trading. He was a lot more financially sophisticated than I was. And I was talking to him on the phone and I was explaining this thing called a mutual fund. And I was like, man, there's this thing called a mutual fund. And Jamie, we can see your name. Yeah. There's this thing called a mutual fund and, you can all put your money in this pool and you can buy stocks. And he's like, Jerry, you could just go buy stocks anyways. And I was like, no, I can't. Like, how am I going to buy stocks? And so I was blown away by these basic concepts. Right now, the thing that I want to point out is most of you guys on the webinar of your clients, you're already past that level, right? But there are some people watching and that will be watching the replay that it's news to them that they could be investing. It's news to them that they could be getting out of debt. It's news to them that they could be doing any of the basic stuff financially, right? So that's where I started. And that's the first point on this, building and gaining a top financial education, a top 1% education, understanding where you are with your education. Right. Understanding, and the best way to do this, the best way to get perspective on this, guys, is looking at those out there in the world and what they're doing with finances. Okay. Because again, education, knowledge translates into results. Right. So when I look at results, I can surmise that somebody has to a degree knowledge. Right. So when I look at, here's when I look at, results, I'm looking at people that have been around for a long time. They've been financially successful for a long time. They've been through several recessions and depressions. That's why I like old dead people. Me and my marketing team, we were doing a video this week about who I study and who my mentors are. And I told them, I was like, it's old, dead, successful people. Okay, I want to study dead people because I already know what happens. There's not going to be any surprises. There's not going to be an incident of them going bankrupt all of a sudden or them turning out to be, a fraudulent person or any of that stuff. Right. And so I like the fact that I can read about John Rockefeller. I can read about JP Morgan. I can read about, these Carnegies and these people way back in the day, the Henry Fords, and they're dead. And I can look at the entire thing and I already know that they succeeded and they finished strong. Right. And there's also stories of people that didn't. I can read about people that almost did. And then they made a bad decision and they went insolvent or they went bankrupt or they went to prison or whatever it might have been. Right. And so that's a thing that I look at is when I'm trying to gain a top 1% financial education. What I first did is I started looking at who are the wealthy people. Okay. And there's this more so today it's pronounced. There's this group of new money and old money. Right. You'll see it pronounced on social media of calling people like, okay, boomer. That's old money. Right. I don't pay attention to new money. I pay attention to old money because the old money, that's who you pay your rent to. Old money, like that's who, they made it through the tech bubble. They made it through 2008. They made it through, the COVID thing. They made it through, the 1980s recession. Some of them made it through the 1950s recession. So when I look at old money, they've stood the test of time. And when I'm looking at what plan am I going to follow, I don't want something that's brand new. I want something that's been around for a long time and is proven through various ups and downs. Right. So that's one of the first points I want you to think about. Okay, who am I paying attention to? Who am I looking at in the top 1%? Am I looking at the new money? And new money would be people that are in the last 10 years, they've become financially successful. Elon Musk is new money, right? Jeff Bezos is new money. Like these are people that they're relatively new on the scene. We might see them and hear about them. Old money, they're not on social media. Right. You've got to go read, publications and you've got to read biographies and you've got to actually like go dig and find out who these people are. Okay. And that's important to me because I looked at, okay, well, I don't want to figure out how do I buy raise money for a tech company and sell a bunch of empty shares that have no earnings for a high valuation that's not backed by any. I can't duplicate that. Right? Look at the way that, for example, look at the way that Elon Musk has built his net worth. He sells non-profitable companies to investors. Right? He raises a bunch of money on an idea, builds up a company that doesn't usually have profit, and then he sells it somehow for a multiple valuation. The average person can't follow that. Right? Like look at what are the components of that? That's not a financial education. That's connections, right? That's kind of like conniving and being a little bit shifty sometimes and being able to work a deal and finesse things that aren't really there. Like that's not something the average person can do. Right? Versus if I look at a guy like John Rockefeller. Okay. Rockefeller, if you go, way back in the early 1900s, at that point in time, he was the wealthiest man in United States history. If you take his inflation adjusted net worth in today's dollars, the man in today's dollars was worth almost $400 billion. Think about that, $400 billion. Guys, he didn't have Facebook, let alone Facebook. He didn't have a freaking telephone. So I think Musk, his net worth is like the mid 200s to high early 200s, right? So we're talking almost double without social media, right? Without telephones, without television, without the news and all these things that we have today, without having airplanes to fly and travel the country. This guy basically with the equivalent of a fax machine. It wasn't even called that back then. They had telegrams. Using telegrams and horseback and these different things, built a $400 billion net worth. So I'm looking at that and that's who I want to study. I'm like, okay, whether I agree with the guy or not, I want to study that. I want to figure out what did he do? What was his strategy? Because that's impressive. Okay. So looking at this again, you've got to decide, am I trying to build top 1%, old money or new money? Okay. And the difference is old money is consistent, repeatable action. Right? Rockefeller started building a business, and then he built another business, and then he built another business. All of us can go build a business. These were profitable businesses. This was before the era of the stock market being this popular thing. There was no benefit to him trying to get this giant valuation on a share price. He wasn't trying to do that. He was trying to get earnings. He was trying to get positive cash flow through the company. So we can all do that. That's a duplicatable action. So he built businesses, and then he started bringing in partners, right? Then he started, adding in businesses that were parallel to his current one. He was doing oil. He's like, well, how do I take that and start doing kerosene and these different components using oil, right? All of the byproducts. And so he did that. And then he was like, okay, great. Now it's time to start investing. I'm going to start doing real estate. I'm going to start getting into banking. At the very end, he finally started getting into stocks. Right. So when I look at that, that's something I can do. That's something you can do. Right. I can't go raise money from investors, angel investors, for a tech company that doesn't exist. I don't know how to program. I don't have a team in India that can do development for me. I don't have all of these connections that are just going to freely give me money knowing they might lose it. Right. So I have to look at this. Which route am I going? And I'm going to talk to you tonight. Okay. We're going to go old money route. This is what I wrote my book on, right? So when I wrote this book, Blueprint to Financial Freedom, I spent 10 years studying these guys, right? So I was a financial advisor first. I was doing, like I said, the retail and the mainstream stuff. And what happened was I had one appointment, and this changed my life forever. Sat down on the appointment. I was pretty new in the business, and I tried to explain to the guy, like the benefits of investing. Right. And I was like, you need to be diversifying, buying lots of different things and spreading out your risk. And you need to be in different market sectors, and you need to be doing, a dollar cost averaging plan where you buy every month into the stock market and you build up your retirement. And he literally was like, he got it, but he didn't get it. And I'll never forget this, because this guy was a millionaire. I'm sitting across from him, 18 years old. And he's like, what is a stock? And I was like, you know what a stock is. And so I started explaining to him. I was like, it's ownership in a company. You get a certificate, you get a share, they pay, maybe a dividend, you can sell it more for later. He's like, no. But when I buy one, what do I get? And for the life of me, like, I was like, well, you get the ability to get a dividend and appreciation. No. What do I get? Like, other than the piece of paper, what do I get? And I was like, well, you can vote. And he's like, okay, but they're not going to listen to me. Right. They have a board of directors. They're not going to listen to me in Wasilla, Alaska for my vote. Right. So I'm sitting there trying to explain to this guy what a stock is. And for the life of me, I couldn't get him to get it. And it wasn't that he was stupid. It was that I couldn't get him to see the value in what a stock was. Right. And so that appointment ended with him saying, Jerry, when you're ready to learn the truth about money, I want you to come talk to me. Okay. This guy, he was the father of my best friend in middle school. Okay. All throughout high school. Right. Never saw him work. I was at his house every Wednesday for church stuff and Bible studies and different things, youth groups, hanging out with his son. And this guy, he would just do projects. He would just putz around, he would build things. He would, be, like off on these, different investment, due diligence trips. And I never knew what he did for a living. Right. And so that stuck with me. I was like, I have all the licenses and all the knowledge, and I can't get this guy to understand what this stuff is. Okay. Another conversation, I had him ask me, what's a retirement plan? And I was like, well, you put money into it and you get a tax deduction. He's like, yeah, but then what? Like, what can I do with it? I was like, well, you invest it in the things we talked about before, the mutual funds and the stocks and the bonds. And he's like, okay, so I'm going to give my money up and I'm going to get a tax deduction, but I could already get a tax deduction doing these other things that I do. And then I'm going to lose control of the money for the next 40 years. And then when I pull it out, I'm going to have to pay taxes. Taxes are going to be higher, and I'm going to have to withdraw more money than I put in because of inflation. It costs more dollars to buy the same things. And I remember like thinking he was wrong. I was like, this guy just whatever, for whatever reason, that doesn't click. And I remember sitting down with my manager, and I was talking to my manager at the time, right? My manager had been in the financial industry over 20 years. Guy made $500,000 a year in income. And I was like, his name was Randy. I was like, Randy, why don't these, like, I've had these 2 or 3 guys that I sit down with, and they're like real estate dudes, and they don't get, like, I can't get them to understand it. And I remember this guy had been in the business 20 or 30 years. And he's like, yep, I remember my first time meeting with one of those people. For some reason, they just can't see what it is that we do. Right. And the idea was that they had it all wrong, that these real estate people, these investors, they had it all wrong. They just couldn't see the light. And no matter how hard you tried, they just couldn't figure it out. And so I remember like looking at this, and I was like, okay. And then as I would go on appointments, I'd meet with everyone else being, the working class and mom and dad and the family and the normal people. And they were stressed out. And it was something that I never picked up when I met with these investors. When I met with the everyday family, they were worried about paying the bills next week. They were worried about what if I get sick or injured. They were worried about what if I lose my job. And sure, I was setting up a retirement plan for them, and I was teaching them the basics of buying, Wall Street financial products, but they were still worried when I left. And that worry wasn't there for the investors. They didn't have that. It was almost like they were almost like borderline careless. Right. So that was for me. I call it pulling the string. I started pulling the string on that. I was like, okay, what is this factor? What is this factor that I see in these investors that I can't get them to understand why they should do what I sell? And then B, why are they never stressed out about money? Right. And part of it was, again, to go back to my level of financial education. I thought that I had the right information. Here's the tricky thing about knowledge, guys. Knowledge is validated by usually, like, when we learn something, we look for the reason why it's true. Right. So when I learn something, whether it's true or not, if I believe it is, I'm immediately going to start looking for proof. I'm going to immediately start looking for reasons why it's right. And so that's very hard to decipher between, well, which knowledge is truer, because one of them I'm aware to, the other one I'm not. If I'm not aware enough yet to start looking at this other knowledge, I'm never going to see the factors and the hints that it's the true knowledge, because it's not something I'm aware to yet. Yeah, Avery says confirmation bias, right? And within that confirmation bias, I don't have the awareness level of what these other guys are doing with finances. I don't have the awareness level of what the top 1% are doing with finances, right? And I see this on TikTok. I've been doing a lot of promoting on TikTok. I share these top 1% concepts. Immediately, people are like, scam. Put it in Wall Street, give it to your 401k, just buy the S&P 500 index funds, and when you're 60, you'll be good. Right? And that's that confirmation bias, but it's also and I had such a lack of awareness that there's no ability to see the other side. Right? And so this is the trick, is to gain a top 1% financial education. The first step is you've got to realize reality is perception. Okay? There's no such thing as true. Right? There's only degrees of more and more true and less true. And that's based on evidence. And evidence is based on what I can see and perceive. So if I can't perceive something, it's not going to be real to me no matter how many times someone shares it to me. So when I started seeing this and I started seeing these little things, these little indicators, like, okay, these guys aren't doing the mutual funds. These guys, for some reason, they're not stressed out. These guys, you know, they have different conversations about money when I meet with them. I started realizing they're different. What is it that they're doing? There's knowledge missing. This guy that I met with told me, when you're ready to learn the truth about money, I want you to come talk to me. He was saying, I will open the door for you and show you the knowledge you're missing, but you need to ask. Because if I tell you now, you're just gonna be like, oh, that's a scam. That doesn't work. You know, and you're not ready yet, is what he was telling me. You're not ready yet. And when you're ready, I want you to come tell me. Okay. So when I became ready, here was the fundamental change. I had to be objectively detached from all of my knowledge. Like I didn't believe I believed anything as long as I could see it, especially with finances, because it's all math. Right. And so when you're looking at how do I gain a top 1% financial education, you've got to have the mindset of, okay, like I'm not going to become emotionally attached to any information. I'm going to look at the math. I'm going to look at the realities around me and what I can perceive and what I can see and what I can look at and observe. And based on that, I'm going to decide what's true. Right. So let me give you a couple statistics. Okay. Right now, for the average American, 60% of them have less than $1,000 saved. Okay. The average rate of return over the last 20 years for a mutual fund investor is 3.88% per year. The average retirement account balance is $70,000. The average retiree will run out of retirement income within 10 years of retirement. Those are stats, right? And so when we look at those stats and then we look at, well, what are the things that lead up to those stats aren't working. Okay. And then we look at, okay, well, what are the other components? Well, the systems we're using, right? So what are some of the things we use? Well, we use the Roth IRA. Did you know the Roth IRA has only been around since 1997? Right? Think about that. We have not seen, let alone an entire generation. Like it's as old as some of your kids, right? Like that's like, okay, I'm going to trust, you know, my child with all of my money right now for 1997. Okay. What's the other one we use? We use the 401k. The 401k has only been around since 1979. It's not even as old as my dad. We have not seen an entire generation of human beings successfully retire with a 401k plan. What about the traditional IRA? That one came out in the 70s. Did you know that it came out in the 70s? They actually revoked it. They got rid of it, and then they brought it back again in the 90s. So again, not even as old as my dad, and they took it away. So that proves they can take it away. They being the government, the IRS, the people that allow us to do these things. Right. And I'm not saying don't do any of these, but I'm saying like we're in a giant social experiment. So all of the knowledge out there that we have, you know, put your money with Wall Street, do the 401k plan, get the free match, do the Roth IRA. It's all brand new. It's not even a generation old. Right. So we're relying on something that is highly speculative, and we're putting all of our eggs in that basket. And we've never actually seen a full generation successfully use this stuff. Right. Like the side effects, if you want to call them that, they're going to show up, you know, in the next 30, 40 years, because now we've had people in the 80s that are actually ending retirement, and we're going to see, is the money there? Right. I tell people all the time with the retirement accounts, you've made nothing till you pull out more than you put in. Doesn't matter what your statement says. You can log in. It can say I made 30% last year. Yeah, but you put in 100,000 and you haven't pulled out more than that yet. That's invisible beans on a screen. Right? It's just digits. That's in the possession of Wall Street. You don't even have custody of those assets. Those aren't yours. So until you pull out more than you put in, you have nothing. Right? In 2008, like people lost, you know, half their retirement portfolios right before they retired. I have clients where their parents and grandparents were about to retire and they couldn't, because this giant balance that they had on their account that they were riding on for the nest egg disappeared all of a sudden. Right. So track record is so incredibly important. And we're in this weird spot today where a lot of people, we look at track record and we just look at it as, okay, boomer, or it's antiquated or what. Like track record means something has worked for a very long time. And if it has worked for a very long time, it didn't just stop. So if it didn't stop working, there's no reason to change it. Right. So what are the things that have worked? This is what I had to go back and research. So when I started studying, and again, this is all in my book, Blueprint to Financial Freedom. When I started studying the top 1% of wealth, okay, what I noticed first was they invest in tangible items. Okay. So they invest in tangible items. What does that mean? They're buying things like real estate. They're buying things like businesses. Okay. Did you know the number one asset class held by the top 1% is small business equity? Okay. It's about, on average, about 60% of the overall net worth. Small business equity. It ain't stocks. It ain't crypto. It's not even real estate. It's small business equity. So let's talk about that for a second, right? There's two phases to this. There's the phase that I'm in now, and some of you guys are now, where we're building a business, right? We use John Rockefeller, for example. He built the business, right? There's equity in a business. Not a lot of people talk about this. When you build a business, if it's cash flow positive, you can do what's called a professional business valuation. Okay. Your business, your LLC, your S Corp, it actually has a value. You could sell it, you could borrow against it, you can use it to get financing. Right. So that's immediately, if you have a cash flow positive net worth, or cash flow positive business, that's immediately an asset on your net worth. That's an actual asset. It's like owning shares of stock in your own company. It really is looked at like that. There's a definite way to determine the value based on the earnings, based on the assets, based on the accounts receivable, all of these things. Right. So how do you do that? You got to focus first on income. Okay. So again, you start thinking, okay, I want to become a top 1%er. Well, immediately you've got to go earn more income. That's the first step. Right. And earning income is an action. I talk about this. It's not a thing that we hope some magic fairies drop some income in our laps, or the government regulates it into existence, or, all of a sudden our bosses will be fair and pay us more. No, earning more income is a freaking battle. It's a fight. Okay. Like in my company, we have to earn income every day to keep the lights on, every day to pay our staff. If you own a business, you know exactly what I mean. Nobody's going to give it to you. You have to go create value in the marketplace. You have to go get known. You have to do all of these things in order to earn income. If you're an employee, same thing. Like, your job is only secure as long as you're producing value. As soon as you stop producing value, that job is gone, and it's going to go to someone cheaper that will produce more value for less money. Okay. It's not unfair. That's economics. It's no different than you buying groceries. You would buy the cheap stuff, right? Like if it's all the same and you're going to get the same value and one thing costs less than the other, you're going to go for the thing that costs less. Wages are no different, right? So I've got to earn more income. Now, why would I earn more income? Because I'm trying to fund financial independence. Financial independence means I no longer trade time for money. I don't have the obligation of working for the next 40 years of my life. That's the motivation behind it. Right. So it's not just money for the sake of money. If it's money for the sake of money, you're going to die poor no matter how much you have. It's money for the sake of freedom. Right. Because everything in life costs money. I learned that the hard way. When my mom was sick with cancer, what she needed was money. She didn't need, like she had all the people at the hospital. She had everyone doing everything already. What we were missing was money. Okay. Money could have prolonged her life. Money could have done a lot of things. Money could have given her more comfort. Right? Money could have given, my sister a break from having to care for her 24/7. Like, these are all things we don't think about till it's an emergency. And then we're like, oh yeah, well, of course money would help. Yeah. But before that, what were we thinking? Right? So this is about having resources, having freedom, and having options. It's not about, having money for the sake of money. If you just have dollars in your account, they're going to go down in value anyways. There's no point, right? This is about, okay, well, what are we using this tool for? So it starts with income. Now, prior to the income is the decision, right? I've got to make a decision that I want to go become a top 1%er. Now, here's the trick. You can't hate on these guys and become one of them. It's impossible. It's called cognitive dissonance. Your brain will not do things you don't agree with. It will not happen. Okay. So if you have this thing over here, I hate on the wealthy people, but also I want financial freedom, whichever one you believe in more is going to win. So if you are constantly on the news and these people who tax the billionaires and, the rich are evil and all this stuff, and, we need to, raise income taxes and listen to Bernie Sanders, all of a sudden, you're not going to build wealth. Okay. Because that's opposite. Okay. You need to be thinking about this, looking, okay, well, if I want to build my income up or I want to build wealth, I've actually got to figure out, what are these guys doing? I can't hate on them and learn from them. It doesn't mean I have to like them. Right? Let me get this straight. I do not like John Rockefeller. I think John Rockefeller is a suppressive individual. I think he jacked this country up, but he was a smart man. And he used a lot of strategies, regardless, they're amoral strategies that I can learn from. Bill Gates, same thing. I think the guy is a creep. Right? He's literally like talking last year about how to block the sun. Like, why would anyone need the ability to block the sun? But you can't refute the fact that I do business on a Microsoft. Without his computer, my company wouldn't be where it's at today. He added value to my life. He did something right, objectively speaking. So we have to be able to detach our emotions. It's not saying we're going to emulate the way that these people are, or we're going to try and act like them with their beliefs and their families and their morals and their ethics. No, it's saying objectively, if we just took the recipe, what recipe did they follow? And how do we do that same recipe for ourselves? Okay, because we could get the same outcome. Because here's the problem, guys. Let's say all of these guys are evil and suppressive. Okay, well, they have all the freaking money. We got to get it from them. If we're going to change the tide, we need the money instead of them. We can't get the money if we're not willing to use the strategies they use to get it, because then we've got to reinvent the wheel. And then we're going to spend all this time reinventing the wheel. Meanwhile, they continue making money. In 2020, the top 1% in the United States of America increased their collective net worth by $1 trillion in a 12-month period during a pandemic. Imagine what they're going to do while we're reinventing the wheel. Okay, because it's going to take us years to reinvent the wheel. Meanwhile, 1 trillion, 3 trillion, 5 trillion, 10 trillion, and they're just going to keep stacking it up and getting all the money. The right people need to have the money. So we have to objectively look at what is it that they're doing. I can't hate on these people anymore. I need to get over my feelings and emotions, and I need to put my big boy pants on and go figure out what they're doing and do it with my own finances, because if I do what they're doing, I'm going to get similar results, because finances are math. If I do a math equation and you do the same math equation, you're going to get the same answer. Does not matter your skin color, your race, your gender, what job you have, your age, none of that. If you write 2 + 2 on a calculator, you're going to get 4. If I put 2 + 2 on my calculator, I'm going to get 4. The equation is the same. It's all just math. You see that? So that's why it comes down to, okay, what information are we getting? Okay, because it can't be the information that's really just marketing. Okay, we lose if we all just go put our money with Wall Street. Guess who Wall Street is? That is the top 1%. Who do you think owns the Wall Street firms? Who do you think owns the banks? Who do you think lobbies the IRS to put the 401k plan in there? The top 1%, right? So we can't be giving all of our stuff. Like they're experts at marketing. They have been forever, right? Because these guys go back. They go back hundreds and hundreds of years. We're talking, kings and serfs and stuff at that point. Marketing. Right? Like, how do you convince a bunch of people to go put on a metal helmet with a stick and try and go beat up everyone else? Marketing. How do you convince, an entire generation to give up their pension and start using a 401k plan that they've never heard of before? Marketing. Right? So we have to stop falling for the marketing. Do as they do, not as they say. We can't know what they do if we don't study them, if we don't watch, if we don't look. Right? So this is what I'm saying, right? So first things first, we got to decide. We've got to stop hating on these people. We've got to look at what is it that they're doing, and then we have to go earn massive income. Okay, and this whole thing about whether you have a job or a business, guys, I don't freaking care. Personally, I think you're going to make more money initially with a job. With a business, most people shouldn't do it. There's too much bookkeeping and compliance and learning about marketing and sales. It's easier for you to just go plug into a system with a company that's going to pay you a lot of money to do a good job for them and not have to do any of that. Right? Like I took one of my sales guys, I put him from W-2 to 1099, and it's a freaking like a cesspool of like new things he's got to learn that don't increase his income. I went through the same thing, right? So the average person, you probably would do better at a job, right? Like, and if you really want to grow your income, the two main veins to do that are sales and service. Okay. Sales and service, commission-based sales and service. If you can learn how to sell something, if you're a people person, if you can communicate, even if you're not, because I wasn't, and you're able to just be uncomfortable and put up with it until you are one, that sales is an excellent way to earn more income. If you're not that, and you're like, man, I don't think I get into service, get into commission-based service where you have no cap on your income, right? If you're hourly, go work freaking 80 hours next week. I'm not telling you do this forever. I'm saying do this for the next 5 or 10 years, because then you're free after that. This goes back to, again, how bad do you want it? If you're in prison right now, and literally all of us that are forced to trade time for money are financially in prison. If you're in prison right now, is it worth a 5-year dig? Is it worth a 10-year dig to be out forever? I think it is. Or is it worth, okay, well, I'm not ever going to have freedom, but at least I don't have to work that hard and I'll live in the prison for the rest of my life. You guys saw Rascal's little onesie. We do that because he gets bug bites and then he chews on himself. Then he gets a bunch of scabs. Don't be like Rascal. So, like if you stay in prison, you're being like rascal. That's the illustration there. So guys, the point of this is the intensity factor has to be there. This is your freedom. If you get out, if you get financially independent, guess what? That means that your kids don't have to be in the system. That means your grandkids don't have to be in the system. And by the system, I mean trading their time for a worthless piece of paper just so that they can pay taxes and die. Right? That's not what life is about. Okay. So I've got to go push on the income, and that's going to take work. Right. Here's the confusion. When I started learning about this, I was all about passive income. I was like, man, how do I get passive income? And how do I use other people's money to do these real estate deals and yada, yada. What I realized was in the accumulation phase, none of it's passive. Okay. None of it's passive. Like, and here's the thing, even once you're wealthy, you're not going to be passive. Okay. The passive income, it's unplugging you. You don't have to trade time for money anymore. There's no obligation. It doesn't mean you don't do anything. Right. So even once I'm financially independent, I'm not going to live a passive life. I'm not going to have the obligation of working for money. I can do everything just sheerly based on creativity at that point, and based on my own desire, and based on, what's going to help people, and not even having to think about money. I can just be like, hey, yeah, I'll do this one for free. I don't need to earn anything. I'm fine. My bills are paid anyways. Right. Like that gives you a lot of power as an individual, but you still are going to do something. Because if you don't, the stats show you get sick, you deteriorate faster as you get older, right? You don't live as long. Things like dementia and Alzheimer's, those that retire early and do nothing, those statistics show that those things happen on an early onset age. So I'm still going to do something, right? Which means today, to earn it, I got to do something. It's going to be work. It's going to be extra time. It's going to be overtime. It's going to be, pushing, and it's going to be that way for 5 or 10 or 15 years. Even if it's 20 years of push, and then the rest of life of freedom is better than 40 years of being stuck trading time for money at a job that I don't like. You see that? Right now, here's the other factor. It's not going to be passive, and you're not going to like it. Right? So I'm here to tell you, gaining a top 1% financial education, part of that is realizing most of the things you got to do aren't things you're going to enjoy. Right? This is not the easy plan. The easy plan is give all your money to Wall Street and hope that they do the right thing. And then hopefully when you die, you still have money left. That's the easy plan. This is the hard but worth it plan. Right? So the top 1%, like they get to where they are either, generationally, which less than 20% of them are that. More than 80% of them are first generation, meaning their parents didn't give them money, they didn't inherit it. Even the 20% that did, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that the point? Why would we hate on the Waltons? Why would we hate on these people? That's the point, for your kids and grandkids to be set for life. That is the ideal scene. Bravo, they did it. We should be congratulating them and looking at how do we do it too. Right? But 80% of them didn't. 80% are first generation, which means they worked their asses off. Okay. I'm gonna put it in this terms. They worked like slaves because they realized they were, and they wanted their freedom. That has to click. I'm a financial slave, therefore I'm going to work like I'm one. I'm going to put in the 70, the 80, the 90 hour. I'm going to do whatever I need to do for the next 5 or 10 years because I have confronted the fact that I'm in financial slavery and I need to get out. And there's no like mindset that's going to slow me down. Nothing is going to motivate me more than that. Right? Once that's there, I can push on the income. Whether that means that I work more hours, I sell more, I service more, I grow my business, I hire more people, it doesn't matter. Right? Like, and making money is as simple as making money, earning income. Like you've always innately known how to do that. When you're a kid, if you wanted some money, you figured out how to get it. Right? That hasn't changed. Right? It maybe we got educated out of it. Like, oh, you need to find a job and an employer with good wages and a benefits package. No. You go figure out, how do I get some money? And then you just go do it. And you do that a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot, and it stacks up. Okay. Now the other factor of this is, okay, well, now I'm earning it. I've got to then start learning about what do I do with it. I was talking to Lexi today. When I see people that are in the business community, they're pushing on their businesses, but they don't focus on the finance side, right? You're going to be very, very good at building a business, but what do you do with all the income? And that's why a lot of people then turn around and give all of it to Wall Street, because they spent no time learning about what to do with their money, right? And so if you learn while you work, which again, is going to be a time investment. I tell people start with 10 minutes a day. Okay. 10 minutes a day. If you spend 10 minutes a day, every day learning about finances, you will gain financial freedom through that knowledge, and you'll start growing it because you're going to learn more. As you learn more, you win, and you start, wanting to study more. right? So these are all things that we want to look at. 10 minutes a day. If I stack that up over time, that's really going to pay off versus, an hour every 3 months. Oh, I forgot to log into Wealth Dynamics University. I better binge watch some material. And then for 3 months, I don't do anything again, right? Like that's not going to work. 10 minutes a day is better than that. I would rather have you doing 10 minutes a day. We came out with this journal. It's called the Big 3 Challenge Journal, which is exactly for that. You go through and you check off each point. Did I do my 10 minutes of learning? Okay. Did I do something today to earn income? Did I pay attention to my expenses and rate and reconcile them? You do all 3 of these things every day. And if you do that for 90 days, it becomes a habit. So this is 90 days of habit building, right? So that's another one. If you're interested in that, reach out to Nano. But that habit of learning, it becomes a muscle. And here's the thing, it's a snowball effect. Once I learn it, I know it, I don't need to learn it again. Right? So next time it comes up, I already have the knowledge. I experienced this when I look words up. It's the most tedious thing in the world. I'll read some things and I'm like, man, like when I don't know something, I actually do go look the words up. So sometimes I'll spend an hour looking up words and I might have gotten 3 pages done, but I know all the words on the page because I don't want to read a page just to be like, hey, I read a page, but I don't know what the words on the page said. Right? I hated that. When I was a kid, I would read, a page of a book and I get to the bottom and I'd be like, I don't know what I just read. Right? My mind is blank, right? That means I didn't understand what the word said. So now I go through and I read, and as I go through and I understand that I don't know what that word means, I will look it up and I will spend more time on the front end looking the words up. But once I know them, next time I read, it's much faster because now I have a basis of, I understand. Same thing with the financial knowledge. I might not know, for example, the tax code, but if I spend 10 minutes a day learning about it, each time it gets easier. Now I have knowledge and I can apply the knowledge, right? So earning lots of income, spending time every day learning about finances. Okay, like you have to realize with these top 1%ers, let's talk about this for a second. JP Morgan was a banker, right? Like his dad was a banker. When JP Morgan was a little kid, he saw 1 million British pounds of gold, right? He was learning about banking terminology from his dad, from the Rothschilds family. Like this was a freaking teenager. So if you want to look at one common denominator, it's financial literacy. What did this guy know? His dad cared enough to make him learn these things because it was the family business. John Rockefeller was an accountant. He was a bookkeeper, right? His dad was actually I always forget the name of the word. His dad had secret families. His name was Wild Bill Rockefeller or something like that. He basically had he literally sold snake oil. Like he was not a good dude. He sold snake oil. So he would go from town to town selling these potions to heal like cancers and ailments. None of them were legitimate. While he was there, he'd hook up with some chick, start a family, and then he'd have secret kids. He had like 9 secret families. Right? Like his wife didn't know about this. His kids didn't know about this. Later on, this came out, right? So it's not like John Rockefeller's dad was this financial genius and wealthy man. His mom wasn't either. So Rockefeller was an example of someone that looked at this and was like, I don't like the conditions of my life. I understand that I need to know about money. So he, as a teenager, started learning about accounting and bookkeeping. Okay, that's initiative. Right? Andrew Carnegie, another wealthy guy, right? Andrew Carnegie was a first-generation immigrant from Scotland. Okay, grew up literally in poverty. When he was a little boy, he had to work to produce income to help his parents cover the food for his siblings. Think about that. Like I was whining about I had to stand in line at a food bank. Okay, but I didn't live in a dirt hut, right? I didn't have to work to pay the bills for my siblings when I was a little boy. Think about that. Like we talk about, circumstances and not having the right upbringing or, having these different, things and advantages. This guy had no advantages. First generation immigrant, dirt poor. And when he was a little boy, they were so poor that he had to get a job in order to help his parents pay for the groceries. Insane. Right? And so what did he do? He actually became an apprentice. This is an excellent route. If you're younger, become an apprentice. Find someone successful, apprentice with them. He became an apprentice and he started learning about business and finance again as a teenager. So we look at these wealthy guys. I can pinpoint almost every single one of them at a young age started learning about finances, right? And it's not even the young that has to do with it. It's the fact that they had such a long time horizon for that to compound. That's why I'm saying 10 minutes a day. Okay. Like 10 minutes a day. If you do 10 minutes a day of learning about finances, that will compound. If you're young, then yeah, you're going to have a longer period of compounding and you're going to be able to have that payoff be even bigger. If you're older, like more reason to start now. You've got less time. So you've got to get on this. Right. But those are the common denominators. And then every single one of those guys went on to earn an insane amount of income. Right. This doesn't get talked about enough. The income is so important. I can't save what I didn't earn. I can't invest what I didn't save. So therefore, if I didn't earn it, I can't save it and I can't invest it. I can't build wealth. If I earn it faster, I'm going to be able to save more and I'm going to be able to invest more. The income is the gas pedal, right? And again, we have to unhook this idea that this income is a hard and tricky thing. No. Like literally you could walk over to your neighbor's house right now and be like, hey, could I mow your lawn for $20? And they'd be like, sure. Boom. You just got income. Right. And it doesn't have to be that crude or that rudimentary, but that's an example of how easy it would be for all of us to earn income. The thing is, again, do we actually want it? Because that's work. Are we willing to do the work? Right. It's like with fitness. Like I want to eat donuts and also build muscle and lose weight. It's not going to happen. Like if I'm going to eat donuts, I'm not going to have my fitness goals happen. It's one or the other. It goes back to that cognitive dissonance thing. Okay. Now, the learning is so important because again, you bring in the income, you save the money. That's the first point. I bring in the income and save the money. Where do I save it? If I don't have the knowledge, I'm going to give it to banks and I'm going to give it to Wall Street and I'm going to give it to the IRS. Guys, in the story of life, these are the bad guys. These are the big three bad guys: banks, IRS, Wall Street, and they're in cahoots together. If you look at most of the things that they do together as a group. Right. So what we're looking at is, okay, well, I don't want to earn the income and save it just to then give it to the banks. Why? Because again, I'm giving it to the bad guys. I'm giving it to the ones that I don't want them to have the money. They already have all the money. The point was for them not to get it. So if I get it and then immediately give it to them, think about these little jingles we hear: pay yourself first. Sounds awesome, right? Okay. But in practicality, pay yourself first. What do? We gave it to Wall Street, right? We gave it to the bank. So how did they convince us, Jerry, pay yourself, Jerry Fetta, first means give it to Wall Street before you ever see any of it. In fact, before you even get your paycheck, right? So Marx says it's about giving up control of your money. Exactly. Guys, the top 1% do not give up control of their money. They want control. Control equals income. Control is so important, right? So why do I have lack of control? That's a good question and a good point Mark brings up. I would have lack of control because I have lack of knowledge. When I have low knowledge, my responsibility level drops. Think about it. When you don't know about something, you're like, I don't want to do that. I don't like, what if I mess it up? I don't want to be involved. That's too much work because you don't know about it. So then you seek to put the responsibility on someone else. Oh, if I just give it to that nice financial advisor that goes to my church, I don't have to worry about it. They'll take care of it for me. Right. And then it's like, okay, well, now I don't have control of my income. I don't have control of my assets. I don't have control of my savings. So again, make the decision, then educate yourself. Earn income, then educate yourself. Then save, then educate yourself. So when you're saving, where should we be saving? The purpose of saving is to store value. It's to exchange currency for real things, real objects. Okay. Back in the day when we used to have markets and bartering, you would literally go to the market with the wheat that you produced and you would trade that for corn or other commodities based on either the fact that you were going to need them or you were going to store them later and trade them for something different. Right? You wouldn't leave it in the wheat. Guys, the wheat's going to expire. And when it expires, nobody will want it. And as it expires, it's going to be worth less and less and less every single day, just like currency. You do not want to save in dollars. Okay. Right. So we call them sacred accounts. Mark is exactly right. Mark's been paying attention. We call them sacred accounts. They're stores of value. What do we use? We use life insurance. First one. Why do we use life insurance? Life insurance is the safest place to put money. Like the dollars that I don't want anything to happen to them, I put in life insurance. It's been used by banks, top 1%ers, Fortune 500 corporations, literally for hundreds of years. Okay. Ever been to Disney World? You can thank a life insurance policy that you can go. Have you ever eaten at McDonald's? You can thank a life insurance policy that Ray Kroc was able to take a loan in order to finance McDonald's. It's ironic that JCPenney just went out of business, but they would have went out of business in the 1930s if James Cash Penney didn't take a life insurance loan in order to cover his payroll to keep the doors open. I could keep going on. Foster Farms, Stanford University, right? Joe Biden has 6 of them. These are things that, again, we have to know about them. When I first hear it, I'm like, life insurance, that's a scam. I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to use Wall Street products. And I don't call them that. I call them sophisticated names like 401k plan and free match and S&P fund, right? But when I look at what do the wealthy do, that's what they do. Okay. So that's the first one. What's the second one? I use gold. Gold is the second one. Gold has been the most established store of value, real money for over 6,000 years. Right? You look at, again, gold, like who owns most of the gold? Central banks do. What do central banks do? Oh, they just run the global economy. No big deal or anything. Who's the number one owner of gold? The United States Central Bank. Which central bank is the biggest? The United States Central Bank. How much gold do they own? Over 260 million ounces. 260 million ounces. That's not a small amount of gold, guys. So they're storing their value in it. And then they're using that to grow, right? So the gold that they have, they're buying more and more every year. They store it. With gold, you can do things like borrow against it. You can lease it out, right? Like it's a real tangible store of value. The gold that we have today, same gold that's been around for 6,000 years. It's never going to go anywhere. It is literally the most valuable and useful metal on the planet, and it can't be manufactured, right? What's the third one? Real estate. Real estate has always been a thing. Marx says the golden rule, he who owns the gold makes the rules. That's exactly true. I buy gold almost every week. I try and do it every week. The other one is real estate. Okay. Real estate as a store of value. Okay. How do you store value in real estate? Have you ever bought a home and it appreciated? That's a store of value, right? Have you ever bought land and it appreciated? That's a store of value. Have you ever bought a rental property and it appreciated? That's a store of value. Right. So those are the three places we store value. Okay. So again, I'm not going to know that if I'm not learning every day, if I'm not spending time getting financial education. Instead, I'm going to do the Roth IRA. I'm going to do the traditional IRA. I'm going to do the 401k. I'm going to give it to Wall Street. I'm going to give it to banks. I'm going to put it in crypto. I'm going to put it in CDs, all the things everyone else is doing. Okay. I want you to just take a really quick inventory. Other than clients, like clients of mine that you know, think about your friends and family. Okay. Or even social media connections. If you were to think of them on a percentage basis, like weighted percentage, what percentage of them do you know use Wall Street and bank retail products? Most of them, right? What percentage of them do you know that, you know, they buy cryptocurrency? Right now, I'm going to say most of them, but a lot of them do, right? What about stocks? Most of them, right? What percentage of them use life insurance as a bank? Almost none of them. What percentage of them own physical gold? I can tell you less than 12%. Less than 12% of Americans own any gold at all. Okay. What percentage of them are doing real estate investing? Almost none of them. Just that tells you something. Marx says 1%. Exactly. It's called the top 1% for a reason, guys. 99% of people ain't doing this stuff. Right. So you have to know this. Now, the other thing again is, you know, you're storing the value, right? You're putting it in the life insurance, in the gold, in the real estate. And then it goes back to, again, learning. Why? Because now I have things to worry about, like taxes, right? I have things to worry about, like estate planning. Here's the number one mistake investors make is they don't figure out their estate planning and taxes before they invest. Like, oh, I got some money. I got to go put it in a deal, right? I can't tell you how many messages I get. It's almost weekly. Hey, I bought the crypto. I bought the real estate. Now I don't know what to do. I'm going to sell it. And I have this giant tax burden and I don't know how to handle it. Guys, you're supposed to figure this shit out before you get into the real estate. Like, don't on the back end be like, oh no, there's taxes. The point of investing is to grow the money. Of course, there's going to be taxes. That's why you've got to learn. People that don't learn pay stupid tax, right? Stupid tax means because I didn't learn, right? Now I got to pay whatever the tax, the loss, whatever it might be, the fees, the commissions. I don't, it's different from thing to thing, but it's always going to cost you money. Right? Not learning is cheap now. It's like, oh, I didn't have to buy the book. I didn't have to buy the course. That's awesome. I saved money and time. Yeah. But when you're doing the $1 million deal that you're exiting and now you owe 300 grand in taxes, that's not cheap anymore. Right? Or when you didn't do your estate planning and now when your estate goes through probate, it's going to cost 15% of your estate in fees and your beneficiaries are going to see nothing for 18 months. That wasn't what you planned on. Right? So again, learning. So again, I look at, okay, I want to be a top 1%er. Got to go learn, right? Then, okay, now I want to be a top 1%er. I've got to go look at, well, who are the top 1%? What are they doing? Again, go learn. Okay, good. Now I know who they are, what they're doing. I need to go earn massive amounts of income. Good. Doing that, go learn, right? Now that I'm earning income, I've got to save. Where do I save it? How do I save it? What do I do? I've got to go learn some more. Now that I've saved it, I've got to plan for legacy and taxes and protecting what I've built up. Time to go learn again, right? Now it's time for investing, right? Investing is another one. Guys, like contrary to popular belief, the top 1% are boring investors. They don't get wealthy on startups and tech stocks and cryptos. They do all that stuff after they're already wealthy. It's like going to Vegas for them, right? They're allowed to fix the game. They can manipulate the markets. It's not even like going to Vegas. It's like opening a casino. That's more like what it is. Yeah, if you go open a casino, of course Vegas is fun. The house always wins. If you're a billionaire already, of course crypto is fun. You can manipulate the markets. Of course stocks are fun. You can manipulate the markets. Right? Look what Elon Musk just did with Twitter. I hate to pick on Elon, but he's so easy, right? He gets 9% of the board, illegally doesn't announce it until after, and he makes $150 million in profit on that spread by buying 9%, not disclosing he owns it, and then announcing that he owns it after he already has the 9%. So the shareholders prior didn't have the chance to get in before Elon, announced he was going to be a 9% shareholder, right? People that were selling probably wouldn't have sold if they knew Elon was getting in at 9%. So he didn't release or divulge this information. That's market manipulation, right? So these are things we've got to think about. So when I'm investing, the top 1%, they're boring investors. Again, the number one thing they invest in is small business. So again, we talked at the beginning, if you're investing in small business, what does that look like? Well, you're building your own business, right? You're building your own business up, okay? Now, once you're wealthy, you can start doing what's called venture capitalism. Venture capitalism means that you go through and you look at small businesses in your community, your area, and it's kind of like Shark Tank. Okay, Shark Tank or that show The Profit, Marcus Lemonis, that's venture capitalism. You're investing in small companies. Okay, it's not even angel investing. Angel investing means you're investing in startups. Venture capitalism happens before even angel investing. Venture capitalism means that coffee shop down the street that you love, you can help them expand as an investor. So you're going to walk in and you're going to offer to invest and you're going to help them grow that coffee shop. And now it's an established business already. You already loved it and now you own part of it, right? That's venture capitalism, right? Or and it's always the venture capitalism for me, it's always an established business. It's always something that already works and now I can make it better, right? So that's, again, small business equity. Then you get into angel investing. That's, again, small business equity. So small business is always going to be a thing, even more so than the stocks. Right, like the wealthy, they're not number one holding in public traded stocks. Their number one holding is small business equity. Okay. Now, the other things they're doing things still like life insurance. When you're an accredited investor, there's a different type of life insurance you can get. In fact, there's 2 or 3 different types of life insurance you can get that aren't even an option right now before you're accredited, and they're way better. Right? You can do real estate investing. You can do mortgages. You can do life settlement investing, foreign currency trading. There's so much stuff you can do at that point. Right? So again, I don't know any of these if I don't learn. Okay, because this is the myth, is because we're so programmed into having the financial advisor and having someone hand feed us all this information. Guys, you're not going to walk into a financial advisor's office and have them share these concepts with you. They're going to sell you a Wall Street financial product that they make a fee or a commission on, and that's it. Right? So if I don't go learn and I don't spend the time to gain the top 1% financial education, it's not going to happen for me. I'm not going to be a top 1%er. Okay. Now, before I wrap up, I just want to point this out. You can be financially independent in this country. And I think, probably do that without being in the top 1%. You can probably be in the top 5 or 10% and still pull off, at a very minimal level, financial independence of not, of not having to trade time for money. Okay. But for me, that's a selfish life. If I have the ability, let's agree with this. If I can get to the point where I've built up and earned so much income and saved so much and invested so much that I unplugged from the job, it means I'm a very able individual. It means I have a high level of talent and skill set and value. For me to say at 35 years old, I'm financially independent, I'm unplugging, I'm never going to help anyone ever again, I'm just going to live on my passive income and go to the beach every day, is the most selfish thing I could do. That's not the point. That's not what I'm helping you do. If that's your plan, please exit the webinar. Like, that's not what we're trying to help you do. When you get to the point of being financially independent, Your job then is to help others, right? Like that's why you would get into the top 1%. To be a top 1%er, you need at least $10 million in asset in total net worth. $10 million, right? At 10 million, that's a lot more than you need. And that's the point. The world needs more. There are causes out there. There are ideas out there. There are people that need help. There are groups that need help. We can improve the planet if we have the finances and the resources to do it. And if you're just a check writer, that's fine. Like you don't have to be directly involved in that kind of stuff, but you can be the guy that funds it. You can be the girl that funds it, right? Or if you want to be the one that's like, hey, I can be boots on the ground and not worry about it because I'm in such a good financial condition, then you can do that too. And that's the point. Like it shouldn't just be raw capitalism of let's figure out how to screw each other and make money. No, there should always be how do we improve? How do we make this a better planet to live on? How do we help people? How do we make conditions better? And money allows you to do that. So that's the point of all this. So guys, I know we went a little bit long. What I would like to do is open this up for questions. Generally, we do questions throughout, but I wanted to get through everything tonight. So if you have questions, I would love for you to leave them in the chat. If you're on Zoom, drop them in the chat. If you're on Facebook, drop them in the comments. I'll read those off. If you're on Zoom, by the way, if you have your microphone, I'll turn your mic on and we can actually talk. I always have fun doing that. And I might even pick on a couple of people at random too. Again, so questions, leave those in the chat. And they don't have to be just about what we talked about. Maybe they're things that you're, wanting help with, right? Maybe you're a client and you're stuck on something. Maybe you've just seen this for the first time and you're like, man, how do I learn more about this? What do I do next, right? So drop those in the chat. Let me check Facebook first. Good to see you. We got Andrew, Justin. Good to see you guys. Good to see you, Ivan. Ivan is the man. Andrew says, getting my estate planning going. My trust should be all set up in a few weeks. That's awesome. And I love that. Andrew is one of our clients that's on phase 2 now. So Andrew, got totally rid of all of his debt. He's been earning income. He's got, his reserves built up. He's properly protected. He's got his foundation in. Now that he's starting to acquire assets, because he has the right knowledge, Andrew is setting up his trust now, his estate plan. And the reason why is when he sets it up now, as he buys assets, he can immediately title them to his trust, which is a hell of a lot easier than doing it 10 years down the road after he's married and has kids. And he's like, oh crap, I need to go do all this paperwork. And it's this giant backlog of things I've got to go assign to the trust. So doing it now is very smart. And Andrew knows that because he studies, right? The other thing Andrew's working on is tax planning, right? So before he starts heavily investing, he's going to set up a proactive tax strategy so that he can avoid that exact thing of, oh crap, I invested. Now I've got taxable gains or income. What do I do with them? So amazing job from Andrew. Justice says we need to get together to determine if I'm accredited now. For sure, we can help out with that. Let me see what we have on Zoom for questions. Andrew, Mark Perry says, congratulations. Yeah, for sure. What Andrew did, and Andrew is my age, like he's 20 something, like late 20 somethings, unheard of. Right. And that's what I love. I was meeting with a vendor for gold leasing the other day. I was meeting with a vendor and I told him like I work with, a lot of people, but he's like, man, well, a lot of them must be young. And he thought my younger clients, he's like, man, that's so cool. You're helping them buy, an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I have a client, and this was actually just this week. I was like, I have a client that, is like maybe 30, bought $70,000 worth of gold the other day at 30 years old. Think about that. That's not common. That's not normal. And this person now, and again, they're going to have great, 20s, the 30s, the 40s, they're all going to be great. But I'm thinking about, okay, well, what about when they are 50? And the projection of that, like, of course, they're going to be financially independent sooner. Most people don't retire till 60 or 70, though. Imagine where this person is going to be by that time if they keep doing that. That's incredible. So again, drop your questions in the chat. I see a couple that have come in here. First one up. First one's from Avery. Let me bring Avery on live here. All right, we're live here with Avery. How are you tonight, Avery?
Hey, I'm doing phenomenal, Jerry. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. What is your question tonight?
Yeah, I just had a general question about studying old dead people in the past, and I remember getting curious a couple of weeks ago, and I came across a guy named Jacob Fudger during the 16th century. I think he was either a merchant or a banker,
Okay.
and supposedly his entire fortune was around 2% GDP, European GDP, when he
Wow.
passed. And I was wondering if you ever heard of this guy before.
I've actually never heard of this guy. I'm glad you said his last name because I was about to call him Jacob Fugger. It's Avery spelled it. It's Fugger. That would be a hard last name to have in modern times. I've never heard of this guy before though. Jacob Fudger. I'm gonna have to look him up. And I love this, Avery. I love that you posted that. That's the thing. There's so many of these people. Like you just look in history and you can just start picking them out. That's awesome. All right, let's see here. Logan asks, when is the next webinar? Thank you for your time. Please let me know when the next webinar. So the next one is on Friday next week, 10 p.m. Eastern time. We do these every week, okay? And we do them on Friday. We always have. The reason why is I don't like dealing with unserious people from the standpoint of those that aren't actually going to take action, right? And so for me, that's a test. When somebody takes their Friday night where they could be partying, they could be at the club, they could be, at date night, whatever it might be. And they're like, no, 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 I'm going to learn about finances. That tells me that person is very serious. I'm going to spend my time with them. I want to help them. Right. So we do these intentionally on Friday. And it also, if you struggle with that stuff, it gives you an out. It's like, hey, no, I'm busy. I'm going to go learn about finances instead. All right. Let's see if we have any other questions in the chat. So again, if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat here. And again, if you've not connected up with Nano, be sure to do so. Let me check Facebook again. Mark Andrew says, thanks. Yeah, keep up the good work, Andrew. That's amazing. Good. I don't see any new questions. So guys, in summary, there is no silver bullet to gaining a top 1% education, right? Like if you watch this and you're like, well, he didn't tell me the secret. It's because there isn't one. The secret is consistency and doing all the things. And here's the thing, guys, anyone can start this. The trick is, how do you stick with it? How does this become not just another webinar or not just another program you did for 90 days or not just another program you did for 2 years and then fell off, right? Like if it's going to take you 10 years, that's 10 years of learning every single day. That's a commitment, right? Am I consistent enough to do that? Am I committed enough to do that? And that's what separates the top 1%. It's the ability to stick around. When everyone else quits, gets bored, fails, whatever, those are the ones that keep going. And that's what makes them a top 1%er. So guys, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight here. Be sure to check out the book if you haven't already. Again, you can go to jerryfetta.com/B2F, jerryfetta.com/B2F, and you can get the book. If you've not connected with Nano for a coaching call, do so. We'll be able to do a free coaching call and answer all of your questions there. We will be back again next Friday, 10 p.m. once again. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you guys next time.